It is 8:47 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It's the 10th day of April already, 2026, and this is episode 1297 of Bitcoin. And before we get into today's episode, a quick note here. I spend a lot of time and effort making this podcast, so if you get any kind of value listening to it and want to support the work, the best way to do that is by listening on Fountain app. You can stream a small amount as you listen. You can send a zap with your thoughts on an episode using either Lightning or even a bank card if you're into the whole fiat thing. You'll find more information in the show notes, but honestly, if you're just listening on Fountain, or if you're not using Fountain.fm or Fountain app, go find it. It's one of the best Podcasting 2.0 apps, and Podcasting 2.0 is what enables stuff like chapters and chapter art and transcripts and all manner of stuff. And if you're finding that some of those items on something like Apple Podcasts, it's because they're starting very slowly to incorporate Podcasting 2.0. But if you want a full fleet of everything that Podcasting 2.0 has to offer, Fountain.fm is your bag, man. It is my daily podcast driver. And I don't say that shit lightly, because Fountain is they are not sponsoring this podcast. You are. You're the guys that actually sponsor the podcast. But it's what I use. It's got everything that I want. So if you want to support the show, please do so by using Fountain.fm. That's where you will find the gateway to the Apple App Store, directly to how to download that app, or to the Google Play Store. All right, so you can get them. You can get it both ways, depending on whatever your operating system on your phone flavor of the day is. Again, a lot of work does go into producing this show, and I bring it to you Monday through Friday. Please support the show. I would appreciate it. Now on to quantum. Atlas 21 is going to start us out this morning. QSB proposal offers a quantum resistance without any protocol changes. And again, this is atlas21.com. On April the 9th, Avahu Levy of Starkware published a paper. It's titled Quantum Safe Bitcoin Transactions Without Soft Forks, introducing a scheme called Quantum Safe Bitcoin. The proposal claims to make Bitcoin transactions resistant to quantum computer attacks while maintaining full compatibility with the existing protocol without requiring any changes to consensus rules or the introduction of a soft fork. The problem QSB aims to solve is a known vulnerability in Bitcoin's current architecture. Standard transactions rely on ECDSA signatures on the SECP256K1 curve. In theory, a sufficiently powerful quantum computer running Shor's algorithm could solve the discrete logarithms that underlie that system, allowing an attacker to forge signatures and spend other people's Bitcoin. QSB replaces reliance on elliptic curve security with assumptions based on hash functions using ECDSA as a verification mechanism rather than as a cryptographic foundation. The approach draws inspiration from earlier work known as Binohash, which incorporates single-use signature schemes into Bitcoin scripts. At the core of the QSB mechanism is a puzzle called hash to signature. The system applies the RIP-EMD 160 function to a public key derived from the transaction and treats the output as an ECDSA signature candidate. Only a small fraction of random hashes satisfy the strict formatting rules required for a valid signature, creating a proof of work condition. The paper estimates that the probability of success at roughly 1 in 70.4 trillion attempts. Again, let's reread that. The paper estimates that the probability of success is roughly 1 in 70.4 trillion attempts. Because the puzzle depends on the properties of hash functions rather than the difficulty of elliptic curves, it remains resistant to Shor's algorithm. A quantum attacker would only gain a quadratic speedup through Grover's algorithm, preserving significant security margins. The paper estimates approximately 118 bits of resistance against second pre-image attacks under the Shor threat model. The scheme operates within Bitcoin's existing scripting constraints, including a cap of 201 opcodes and a maximum script size of 10,000 bytes, using legacy script structures. The transaction process unfolds in 3 phases. There is a pinning phase that searches for transaction parameters, producing a valid hash to signature output. 2 digest rounds that select subsets of embedded signatures to generate additional proofs tied to the transaction hash. And finally, a transaction assembly with all required pre-images and verification data. The proposal does come with, of course, notable trade-offs. QSB transactions exceed the network's standard relay policy limits, meaning they would not propagate through the network on default settings. They would instead require direct transmission to miners via services such as Slipstream. The scripts also consume significant space and computational resources. Despite these constraints, however, the cost of generating a valid transaction remains accessible. The paper estimates total computational expenses at between $75 and $150 using cloud GPUs, with the workload distributable across parallel hardware. Preliminary tests report successful puzzle solutions after several hours using multiple GPUs. The project remains incomplete. While the paper and script generation tools are finished, part of the pipeline, including full transaction assembly and on-chain broadcasting, have not yet been demonstrated in production. The proposal nonetheless adds to a growing body of research exploring just how Bitcoin might adapt to a future shaped by quantum computing. By avoiding protocol changes, QSB represents a path that relies on existing rules rather than consensus upgrades. It's an approach that could influence the debate around the long-term security of the network. Okay. I've got something up here. Hold on for a sec. I gotta find it. Okay, it took me a while, but I finally found it. Cycros has responded to my idea about a quantum ready fork, and he's got some really good points. I want to read it here for a second. But before I do, let's go back to this notion that there's a couple things that there's nothing wrong that I can find with where this proposal is. The fact that it's incomplete, this doesn't bother me. And I honestly don't really know why so many people just get flustered around the fact that a presentation that's given to them as, hey, here's a potential thing that might work. It's incomplete, but it's, here's the track, and I want to show you the track so that you can start thinking about it too. And then people go, well, it's incomplete, so therefore it's stupid, or therefore it's unworkable, or therefore it can never work, or therefore I need to be spoon-fed every single thing and I'm unable to think for myself, so therefore you're a bad person. I have never understood this attitude at all. You would think that somebody who's at least trying would get some kind of kudos, but, hey, it is what it is. Still, though, the incompleteness doesn't bug me. What does bug me is that you would have to use something that is, what do they call it? Out of bounds, or rather out of network, using something like Slipstream to directly give a miner or a mining pool your transaction. And honestly, there's very, very few people that have those connections. Now, clearly, the Slipstream is a connection, but how many people have actually ever used Slipstream to make a Bitcoin transaction? Again, I'm not poo-pooing this. I'm just saying $75 on a $1,000 transaction is not something that I'm excited about. What I am excited about is that yet one more person has thrown their hat in the ring, which makes all the arguments that nobody is working on this that is a Bitcoin developer, whether they're core or not core. That's the argument that nobody's working on this, and it's bullshit. Clearly, many people are actually working on it, and there would have never been really a time for anybody to actually quote unquote show their work until the FUD monster rears its ugly head. And at that point, that's why we see it's not. I can guarantee you this guy has not been thinking about this for 48 hours and just came up with this shit. He's been thinking about this for a while. A lot of people have been thinking about a lot of shit for a while, and you're going to see more and more and more and more of these ideas just pouring out of the woodwork, because now we find ourselves yet one more time in a position where we have to combat everything. And that's why you're seeing all of these ideas start flopping on the table. And it's going to be confusing. And some of these are going to be really good ideas, and some of them are going to be bad ideas. Most of them are going to have good qualities and bad qualities the same. There's always going to be a trade-off. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. Somebody's going to find something somewhere about something to bitch and moan about, like I did about the $75 to $150 fee and having to go out of network to get that shit done. I'm not all that upset. I'm simply going, that's kind of a red flag. I don't, that kind of shit's it's not unworkable, but it's going to be a little too expensive for most people. Does that mean that it will stay at $75 to $150 and out of bound transactions? Maybe not. We don't know what's coming. So I just want the screeching to stop, because it's not doing anybody any good. But Psychros wrote me on Nostr, and is kind of giving me some feedback on what he thinks about that I've said a couple of times. Hey, well, what if we have a quantum ready fork and we can just implement it? And he's got some really interesting things to say about that particular idea. He says, a few thoughts about your idea for a quantum ready fork. The mining factor seems to be the biggest reason this is unlikely to work, even if we wanted it to. The difficulty adjustment would, at the time of the split, be set based on our roughly more than 1 zettahashes per second, and it's unlikely that we'd have anything close to that much available. See, that's a problem. I suppose it might be feasible to look at merge mining, but merge mining would have all of the same centralization concerns as it has elsewhere that it's used. Even if we handle this, manually setting the difficulty lower, assuming this can be done, I'm decidedly not a coder, there's the matter of what block you fork from. Because, of course, anyone who transacts after the split can then go use their coins on the other fork. And while we wait for a quantum attack, the chains have time to diverge heavily. You could consider splitting after a quantum attack with a rollback, a la Ethereum Classic. Ugh, gross. But even this assumes you recognize an attack as a quantum attack and not just someone losing their keys. There is no reason to assume that they would be foolish enough to make it this obvious, as it'd be much more sensible to appear it's just somebody losing their keys. The latest episode of What Bitcoin Did actually had some very good thoughts on how to address quantum. I don't think it's quite as close or likely to ever happen as Danny's guessed, but I do think his proposed actions, as it were, a sane approach. Rolling out these proposed fixes on testnet, signet, etc., and then encouraging people who aren't developers to actually use these systems to really give it some testing makes a lot of sense. Hard to incentivize this given that testnet tokens are decidedly worthless, but perhaps wallets that put it a little more front and center as a way to help new people to Bitcoin learn their way around without putting any real money at risk wouldn't be the worst thing anyway. I get your rationale for considering a fork, but yeah, logistically, I don't think it could quite work out as well as you'd like. It might shut up the retards because they are too retarded to see why it shouldn't, but in terms of actually fixing anything, I think it would miss the mark. And meanwhile, building things for retards is a really good way to waste a lot of time and energy. And I agree. I have always been skeptical of like, even if it's coming out of my own brain. I'm like, even when I was thinking about, and I'm still thinking about a hard fork. But even as I think about it, I'm like, this just seems like a really cheap way to get something done. And cheap as in like mental, expending mental energy. It's almost as if it's like some kind of default where we just go, oh, well, we'll just fork it. So Psychros is correct. I love his critique on this idea because it kind of solidified why it was in my own mind that I was going, this just seems cheap. This just seems like a cheap way to do it. And he's got a lot of really, really good points. I did listen to the What Bitcoin Did episode with it was the last, it was, I think it dropped the day before yesterday, I think, and I cannot remember the guest's name, but he had some really good points. I think the best thing that's coming out of all this, other than the retarded screeching, and I'm sorry, I grew up using that word. It does not offend me. I don't know why. There are people in my life that used to use that word and not get offended by it, and now they get offended even if they hear it. And I just don't understand the switch. I'm like, dude, you used to say that shit all the time, and now what? You can't use retard? I'm not making fun of little Johnny down the street. I'm just saying this is a backwards way of thinking, and it doesn't matter. The retarded screeching has got to stop. At least we're having some competent discussions about this that go beyond the developer world and into the user world. And this type of discussion, once it comes out of the high and mighty ivory towers and goes to the masses, is sort of like what happened when Gutenberg printed the fucking Bible in Latin. Because before that, it was they were mostly in Greek and written, hand written by monks, and you couldn't afford one. And even if you could, most people at the time, it was Latin. It really was. It was like there was a lot of people spoke Latin, and it was a commoner thing. And it wasn't just that he was able to print the Bible. It was that he printed it in Latin. This is sort of kind of the same way. When we start looking at what the people in the ivory tower are doing, and we can refit it into our own language and discuss it amongst ourselves instead of depending on the people in the white towers, then other parts of the problem start to get solved. Like, do you want to spend $75 per transaction on a fix? What does that mean to you? What does that look like in your daily life? Because it's probably different than what people in ivory towers, what their lives look like. So I'm really happy that Psychros was just coming out, he wasn't coming out swinging. He was just basically saying, this is why it won't work. And he makes some really competent arguments as to why a hard fork won't work. And I don't blame him. I think these are really good arguments. I love the fact that Psychros, I love the fact that you reached out to me and gave me a really good salient argument as to why this probably won't work. It was in the back of my mind, but you kind of helped me solidify as to what the hell's going on. Now on to Coinbase, who has announced an upgrade for the X402 protocol. This is coming out of Cointelegraph. It's going to enable, according to them, usage-based pricing for agentic AI compute results and replaces the former flat fee model. In a post on X on Thursday, Coinbase developer platform announced the Up To scheme, and it's gone live, adding that it will help open up variable cost services for agentic AI, such as large language model inference, compute, and data queries. Quote, until now, X402 only supported exact fixed price payments. That works great for deterministic APIs, but it blocked an entire category of services where the cost depends on usage, such as token count and compute time or query complexity. Quote, Up To is an EVM implementation supporting, all ERC20s and CDP facilitator supports fully gasless payments, it added. it's just sad watching these people continuously leverage Ethereum and all of its bullshit. Have you seen the roadmap? It's a Rube Goldberg machine, but whatever. The move comes amid growing support for the X402 protocol as a wide range of firms prepare for future agentic commerce adoption, which is expected to bring extreme levels of network demand and require frictionless payments and near instant transactions to support agentic AI. The up to scheme allows sellers to configure maximum prices, while buyers will be able to authorize prices up to a specific amount. On the server end, where cost fluctuates, the server will charge only for how much it actually takes to complete the task, meaning users won't be overcharged and may even pay less than the specified maximum price. Previously, simple and complex requests cost the same amount, resulting in some users either overpaying or underpaying for tasks done by AI agents. This upgrade will help users set prices that they are willing to pay before a task instead of guessing just how much they think that task will cost for an agent to complete. Developed by Coinbase, the protocol's ownership was handed over to the nonprofit Linux Foundation earlier this month, with big tech firms such as Google, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services having a stake in the protocol via the X402 Foundation. Despite the hype surrounding X402, the network has seen declining adoption rates in 2026 after hitting peak levels in November, according to Dune Analytics data. Between November the 4th and November the 10th, the protocol saw 13.7 million transactions, its biggest week on record. However, it has been on a steep decline since then, with weekly transaction volume dropping below 1 million in early January and continuing to plunge even further over the first quarter. As of the last week in March, X402 saw just 112,700 transactions. It bugs me. This bugs me because A, it's Coinbase, and B, the Linux Foundation is involved. And they're involving themselves with the exact people that they don't really cotton with. I mean, you got to go back to the whole premise of what Linux is. What did Linus Torvalds actually build, and why did he build it? Why was the Linux Foundation even founded in the first freaking place? This is all free and open source software, and yet it seems to be like an orgy between Google and Coinbase. And who else is in there? Amazon Web Services. It's really rather disgusting, to tell you the truth. What bugs me also is the fact that they're using the name X402, which is a marketing thing to make sure that everybody, when they think of 402, because other people, especially in Bitcoin, have been working on the 402 error code that the internet was basically built with. In the early days of the internet, it would throw an error for payment not found or payment not received or payment information not provided. It was 402 error is on the internet is basically, hey, we know that people are going to use the internet to make payments. To even up until now, nobody's really leveraged the 402 pipeline, as it were. And here comes Coinbase, and they make this X402 Foundation, and then they crawl into bed with Google and Microsoft and Amazon Web Services, and God forbid the Linux Foundation. It's not good for Bitcoin because all of these people want to control. Except for the Linux Foundation, which is why I'm kind of upset that the Linux Foundation themselves has anything to do with this shit. But I don't know. I wish it didn't bug me as much as it does, but it does. And it makes me really happy to bring you the Circle P, where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to other plebs just like you who want to sell goods and services, but they would be selling it in Bitcoin. I screwed that all up, man. The Linux Foundation thing screwed my brain up. It every time I fall over it, it's like I face plant. Let me try this again. The Circle P is open for business. It's where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to plebs just like you who want to buy said goods and services, but you will be buying it in Bitcoin, because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. And sats4snacks.com, that's sats, the number 4, snacks.com is in the Circle P. He's got freeze-dried pineapple, freeze-dried peaches, freeze-dried mango, freeze-dried all kinds of stuff, including bananas and strawberries. And it's all organic. It's all organic, man. And freeze-dried is so much better than dehydrated. Dehydrated, it's like chewing on flavored leather. Freeze-dried if you ever had the astronaut ice cream that you go to, like, I don't know, an observatory, you go to the gift shop, and if it has anything to do with science and they've got a gift shop, guarantee you're going to find freeze-dried ice cream. It's crunchy and it like melts in your mouth. This is the same way, except it's with peaches and bananas and pineapple, and it's delicious. I've had it. I love this stuff. It's great. Sats4snacks.com. That's sats, the number 4, snacks.com. Be sure to use Bitcoin and as a coupon code and get 2.1% off of your purchase. That's Bitcoin and. Use it as a coupon code for 2.1% off of your purchase at sats4snacks.com. That's sats4snacks.com. CIA is going to integrate artificial intelligence for coworkers to process intelligence and catch spies. I guarantee you it goes well beyond that. But this is Cointelegraph. Let's see what they have to say. The Central Intelligence Agency said that it will embed AI coworkers directly into its analytics platforms to assist analysts with detecting spies and anticipating hostile moves by foreign adversaries. And I say to you, what could possibly go wrong? Quote, within the next couple of years, we will have AI coworkers built into all of the agency's analytic platforms, a kind of classified version of generative AI that will help our analysts with basic tasks. What, like going to the bathroom? Anyway, that was CIA Deputy Director Michael Ellis. According to Politico, Ellis said that the AI coworkers would assist intelligence officers with drafting key judgments, testing analytical conclusions, and identifying trends in intelligence that the agency gathers from abroad. Let's pause right there to make sure that we know what we're talking about. Technically, the CIA is not to conduct any operations on United States soil, on United States citizens. It is supposedly, and has supposedly always been, only for foreign intelligence. I find that a complete load of bullshit. So just understand, they're going to be using it on the United States citizenry as well. Just start from there, and it'll at least help you process the fact that all government agencies are going to have this shit. And it's going to cause all manner of false claims. And at this point, technically, according to the Constitution of the United States, we can't sue the United States government. Not exactly sure how that works, because I'm pretty sure that somebody has sued the United States government before, but technically we're not supposed to be able to. How the hell are we going to defend against this shit? Hey, man, here it is. Mr. Bennett, could you open the door? Yeah. What is it? This is Officer Spokanish from the FBI, and we've got this report here that says that you did, and then they list off 10 things that I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And yet, they're serious. See, none of this needs to be being used at these levels ever, much less at this stage of AI development. This is bad. Nothing good can come from this, and a lot of people are going to get hurt for no reason at all, and they won't be able to just simply live their life as the decent human being just trying to be happy should be able to do. And it's sad. It's sad. However, let's continue. However, he said humans would continue to make the key decisions. Yeah, bullshit. The CIA's AI plans comes amid a feud between the U.S. Department of Defense and AI firm Anthropic. Despite having a $200 million contract with the DoD, Anthropic prevented the use of its flagship AI product, Claude, for mass domestic surveillance and fully autonomous weapons. President Donald Trump ordered all federal agencies to immediately cease using Anthropic's technology in March, while the Department of Defense declared Anthropic a supply chain risk. The parties remain locked in a legal dispute. While Ellis didn't point out Anthropic, he said CIA cannot allow the whims of a single company to constrain its capabilities. The CIA has already adopted AI for other intelligence tasks, having tested about 300 different projects last year to bring new capabilities to our mission, such as processing large data sets and language translation, Ellis said. He also noted that the CIA recently created its very first intelligence report with artificial intelligence while predicting that AI's role in the agency's work would continue to grow. A major motivation for the CIA is to stay ahead of China, Ellis said. Yes, of course, it's for the children. And China, noting that the once large gap between the U.S. and China has narrowed significantly. Quote, 5 to 10 years ago, China was nowhere near America in terms of technological innovation, and that's just not true today. So be terrified, be scared. Let the agencies do everything that they can for you because it's for you and your children. Ellis likes the transparency of Bitcoin and crypto, because he said in May that Bitcoin and crypto were matters of national security, adding that the agency reviews blockchain data to support its counterintelligence operations. Quote, it's another area of technological competition where we need to make sure the United States is well positioned against China and other adversaries. Okay. So I'm going to just be straight up naive here. Can't we all just get along? I mean, I know it's always going to come down to who's got the resources, because resources themselves are distributed in a differential pattern around the world, and different peoples need different things. And when you've got basically two completely different and heterogeneous sets of things, like what resources are and where they're located versus all these different people and their different needs, and you overlay those two sets, you're going to end up with fucking chaos. And I get that. But do we always have to look at every other country as an adversary? Do we always have to just continuously assume that everybody's out to get us? I mean, Jesus Christ, no wonder, like, psychological disorders are just like through the roof because everybody's paranoid. You cannot exist in a state of fear for thousands of years as a species and not have some serious psychological damage done. And this shit is not going to help. It's not going to help anybody. Even if it does exactly what they want it to do, it's not going to help anybody. Let's run the numbers. CNBC, where nobody believes any of this ceasefire bullshit because Brent North Sea is up over a point today to 96.94 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate also up a point to 98.93. Natural gas is down kind of to $2.66 per thousand cubic feet. Gasoline is up 1.7% again, back over $3 to $3.05 a barrel. Murban crude is down 1 2/3 point to 97.97 a barrel. Metals are not looking happy today. Palladium down 2 points, gold down 2/3 to 4,787 5 dimes. Platinum down 2 1/4. Silver is down 1/4 to 76.23 an ounce. Copper is the only thing in the green. It's up over 2 points today. Ag is fully mixed. Cocoa or chocolate is our winner. 2.72% in the green. Our biggest loser today appears to be sugar, 0.8% to the downside. Live cattle is up 1/3. Lean hogs flat. Feeder cattle up 0.4%. The S&P is moving sideways. The NASDAQ is up 0.16%. The Dow is down a half, and the S&P Mini is down a third. And Bitcoin chilling out at $72,720. That's a $1.46 trillion market cap, and we can now get 15.3 ounces of our favorite shiny metal rock with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 20,013,807.4 of. Average fees remain 0.02 BTC on a per block basis. There's 32 blocks carrying 33,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 1 sat per VByte. Low priorities get you in at 0.1. And mining, let's see what we're doing here. Yep, still at 952 exahashes per second. I don't see a problem with the Bitcoin security at this point. Of course, but there's Quantum, right? From Quantum Salvage, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin and Jay coming to the rescue with 8,400 sats says, thank you, my good sir. Personally, I don't think Quantum will ever scale in a way that can overcome the error rate. I don't believe shortcuts around energy usage exist. If they did, there would be life forms or natural structures that could bypass the need to expend energy to do. And Jay, it cuts off. I don't know why. This is the one thing about Fountain's webpage that I don't like, right? I mean, I love the app. I love using it as my daily driver for podcasts, but when it comes to actually having to look at who gave me a boost, this is not working for me because it cut off your message, and I'm sure the rest of it was also good. I'm in agreement with you right now. Oak Grove with 4,800 sats says headed to BitBlock Boom, crazy week, one behind still. Have fun, Oak, at BitBlock Boom. It's the only, I've only gone to one Bitcoin conference, and I've only gone one time, and that was BitBlock Boom, and I loved every single second of it. And I'm sure it's going to be better this year. It's out in Fort Worth. It's out by the stockyards. It just looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. The one that I went to was in the lobby of a hotel in North Dallas. I mean, the hotel itself was okay, but it just seemed, the conference was great. The hotel, the surroundings, these things are important. Well, at least to me. I like, going into a place that is well appointed, and I think BitBlock Boom, the one I went to, was maybe its second or third conference. So it was still really small. I really want to go back. And if I ever do go back to a Bitcoin conference, it's either going to be BitBlock Boom or it's going to be in Riga. And it's probably going to be BitBlock Boom because I don't think I can afford to travel to Riga. Jason High with 250 says boost. And Nick Dose with 188 says cheers. Right back at you, pal. Noster Gang with 101 again says nothing, and that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Trump's World Liberty Financial uses 5 billion WLFI tokens to borrow $75 million from a platform its advisor co-founded. I can be completely neutral here. I neither like Trump nor do I hate Trump. I do not have Trump derangement syndrome, nor am I a flag-waving person that thinks that a single person can do no wrong. Dude, this is a conflict of interest. I'm sorry, but it is. It is a conflict of interest. And if I guarantee you, if Biden was somehow or another still president and Biden's family was involved in the same shit, people would be losing their ever-loving minds on the right side of the aisle. And the left side of the aisle was like, whoa, there's nothing wrong going on here because it's rah team. So everybody, let's grow up a little bit and be able to criticize what needs to be criticized with the person themselves and what they stand for you notwithstanding. Let's get into this one from CoinDesk. World Liberty Financial, the crypto venture co-founded by the Trump family, has executed a series of transactions through decentralized finance. They're using Dolomite, and it raises questions about insider access, circular token economies, and concentrated risk to other depositors. On-chain records analyzed by CoinDesk, sourced from Etherscan and Arkham Intelligence, and publicly accessible wallet data show the sequence began on February the 8th, when WLFI's treasury deposited 14 million USD1, that's World Liberty Financial's own dollar peg stablecoin, and they deposited it into Dolomite as collateral and then borrowed 11.4 million USDC against it. Minutes later, 11.45 million USDC moved to a Coinbase Prime deposit address per Arkham. 2 days later, 12.5 million USD1 was sent from the treasury to a separate Coinbase Prime deposit account. Coinbase Prime is typically used for converting crypto to fiat or for institutional OTC trading. I got to pause here. They say 2 days later, 12.5 million USD1 was sent from the treasury. They do not mean the United States Treasury. Okay, that should really be like for whatever treasury that they're using to get this stuff from. That's the treasury that they're looking. They're not using the United States Treasury, not yet anyway. All right, just let's be clear about that one. But that 12.5 million USD1 was not borrowed from Dolomite. It moved directly from WLFI's treasury wallet to the exchange, meaning the venture sent its own stablecoin straight to a fiat off-ramp. But the WLFI token entered the picture 12 days later. On February the 20th, the treasury deposited 890 million WLFI into Dolomite and borrowed 20 million USD1 against it. Then on March 24th, another 1.1 billion WLFI followed. In total, almost 2 billion WLFI tokens now sit as collateral inside of Dolomite, and the treasury has received roughly 31.4 million in stablecoin from the protocol across both episodes. The choice of protocol is not incidental, however. Dolomite co-founder Corey Kaplan is an advisor to World Liberty Financial. WLFI now sits at the top of Dolomite's supplied asset list with $458.9 million in supply liquidity. That's roughly 55% of the protocol's entire $835.7 million total. The structural concern sits in Dolomite's USD1 pool. USD1, which now has $4.6 billion in circulation, ranks second on the protocol with $180 million supplied against $167.5 million borrowed, a utilization ratio of about 93%. The USD1 supply rate sits at 16.24%, and the borrow rate is at 9.18%. Figures that reflect concentrated borrowing activity rather than broad organic demand. At that utilization, ordinary depositors who lent USD1 to the pool expecting to withdraw at will cannot all do so at once. Their funds are effectively locked until the large borrower repays. It is a massive rehypothecation, for lack of a better term. But the collateral backing the WLFI denominated borrow is a completely separate problem. WLFI trades with limited market depth relative to the size of its position. If the token moves sharply lower and Dolomite's liquidation mechanism triggers, the forced sale would crash the price before the collateral could be unwound, leaving the protocol holding bad debt that would fall on the same retail depositors who currently can't get out. They can't get out. They're held hostage at this point. Activity escalated in April through a different route. On April the 2nd, the WLFI Treasury sent 2 billion WLFI to a Gnosis safe proxy wallet and then they give the address. I'm not going to read it. 5 days later, it sent another 1 billion. Neither transfer went directly to Dolomite, and on-chain data does not yet show where these tokens are headed. The 3 billion additional tokens are worth roughly $266 million at WLFI's current prices of about 8.8 pennies per. World Liberty Financial did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Yeah, no shit, dude. So, all these depositors, the little guys, are held hostage. It is they are literally existing on a wing and a prayer that nothing really bad happens at this point. And then even if nothing bad happens, and it's just like status quo, how long before this massive borrower gives the money back? Because until then, nobody else can escape. They are literally held hostage. And this reeks of this. There was something that I read, and I'm not going to go back and find it, but there was a sentence in there, and you may not know what it was, but all I could think of is the problem in private credit. That's all I can think. It immediately hit me like a gut punch. I'm like, this sounds a lot like what's going on in private credit. Something's probably going to break in this whole DeFi bullshit. And it's not helpful that Mythos from Anthropic is potentially going to be one of the agents that can figure out everything wrong with DeFi and exploit the living shit out of it. But thankfully, we're all safe because Anthropic thinks that Mythos is so powerful that it can't be released to the public. So yeah, we're all safe, right? Right. You're only safe if you buy Bitcoin and you hold Bitcoin with your own private keys. That's it. There's nothing else. Everything else is a crapshoot, dude. And then we've got Tether. They've launched a toolkit for building local, offline, artificial intelligence apps. This is out of Decrypt. Tether, the company behind the world's largest stablecoin USDT, announced the launch of QVAC SDK, a fully open source software development kit designed to run artificial intelligence applications directly on any device without requiring cloud servers. The cross-platform toolkit works unchanged across iOS, Android, Windows, Mac OS, and Linux environments, the company said. The SDK is built on QVAC Fabric, a fork of llama.cpp, providing compatibility with the llama.cpp model ecosystem for text generation, embeddings, and multimodal workloads. Through a single interface, developers can access text completion, embeddings, vision, optical character recognition, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and translation capabilities. The toolkit's peer-to-peer functionality, powered by the Hole Punch stack, enables decentralized model distribution and delegated inference. The company plans to add peer-to-peer swarms. Swarms! Oh my God, swarms for decentralized training, fine-tuning, and inference in future updates. Quote, the world is approaching a moment where billions of humans share the planet with billions of autonomous machines and trillions of AI agents, Tether CEO Paolo Ardoino said in a statement. Quote, the current model, routing every decision through a centralized server, will not scale to meet that reality. Might have to come back to that. The laws of physics alone make centralized AI a dead end. Speed of light latency, single points of failure, and concentration of control are features of a system designed for a smaller world. QVAC is built for the world that's coming. It is the building block of a stable intelligence era, he added. The SDK emerges from QVAC, Tether Data's AI research initiative focused on building open, decentralized, and adaptive intelligence systems. The company is committed to substantial investments to expand QVAC's open source ecosystem over the coming months and years, including specialized toolkits for robotics and brain-computer interfaces. The launch marks a significant strategic expansion for Tether beyond its core stablecoin business, positioning the company to compete with centralized AI providers by offering privacy-focused alternatives that process data locally rather than transmitting it to cloud servers. And this is why I continue to not be upset with Paolo Ardoino and the people at Tether. I really have yet to find a single thing that this group of people has done that is either designed to screw Bitcoin or screw humanity. I can't find it, except I know that there are people out there that say, dude, just look at Tether itself. I get that part. I really do. But I'm still, even then, I keep looking, and I keep looking, and I keep looking, and I keep looking, and I don't see anything terrible. And then the people will say, but that means that they're not using Bitcoin. Dude, if it hadn't been Tether, it would have been Jeremy Allaire. And they're already doing that shit with USDC. Would you rather have a Bitcoiner doing this, or would you rather have somebody who signed their name to the New York Agreement basically trying to screw Bitcoin? I'm going with the former. But it doesn't matter. If neither one of those cats had done stablecoin, somebody else would have. It was a matter of time, man. It was a matter of time. Bitfinex and Palo Arduino, they just got there first. And yet everything that Tether does after this, I mean, I'm fascinated that they're interested in agriculture. And I know that because they bought ag land and, well, they bought a whole agricultural company, or at least they heavily invested in it to the point that I think that they own most of it. It means that they get to basically call the shots. Agriculture, artificial intelligence, money. Tether is a company that you're just going to have to watch. If they listed themselves on the stock exchange today, that actually might be a fiat vehicle that I would be interested in purchasing rather than Bitcoin, as much as like I might actually buy less Bitcoin just to be exposed to something to a group of people that I think are not scumbags, because I can't say that for a whole lot of other companies. But I have this thing up here. The current model, routing every decision through centralized servers, won't scale to meet the reality of a world approaching the moment where billions of humans share the planet with billions of autonomous machines and trillions of AI agents. I mean, are we looking... Trying to figure out a way to say this. I know every time that I pause that it sounds like dead space because I've got a noise filter on. So I try not to do that, which is why it's like, God, won't you please shut up? Every time I pause like that, it sounds like, like I just kind of like went away, or maybe you think your phone's glitching, and that's why I try not to do that. But I was talking to my son the other day, and I brought up to him the question as to whether or not he was leveraging AI. And he's 13, right? So he's not like, he's not really all that old. And the whole reason I brought it up was like, you better start using this shit. You better, I don't care what you use it for. That's the whole point. It's like, he's interested in video games, and he's a huge gamer. He's also done some scripting. He really loves computers. And I'm like, look, I don't even care if you use it for coding. Make a picture, do anything, because this shit, it's never going away. That genie is out of the bottle and nobody's putting it back in. And anybody who thinks that it can be put back in, or that they can ignore it and that it will just somehow go away all by itself, they're fooling themselves. So what I've talked about this at least twice on this show. I'm going to do it one more time here. This is the way that I'm looking at it. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just this is a way that I'm processing what I'm seeing with the advent of artificial intelligence. And again, I'm trying to remain neutral. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think it's actually a pretty useful tool, but that doesn't mean that I love it, right? All of human engineering has been put into a box. From the time that engineers were invented themselves to figure out a way to dig under a castle wall to weaken its foundation so that the wall would fall much more easily and the inside of the castle could be attacked, that's where the word engineer came from, medieval times, right? We're talking like knights in shining armor and fucking bastard swords and claymore swords and all kinds of shit. People on horseback and, Lancelot and shit. King Arthur and Guinevere. That's where the word engineer came from. If you didn't know that, that's where the word engineer came from. From that time, building weapons of war machines like catapults and trebuchets and scaling ladders and all that shit, From that time, and even before, all the way until how we design integrated chips, integrated circuits on chips, all of that is the whole of engineering. And it includes biology and chemistry and math and physics and engineering principles themselves and anything else. If it's even remotely technological, it's all been put into a box. And that box now has a voice. And it also has a set of ears. And I can have a conversation with the entire history of human engineering. Remember, if you heard yesterday's show, I brought you a story about Mila Jovovich. She's not a computer engineer. She's not a software engineer. She's not anything. She is an actress, an artist, and a writer. That's what her training is. That's where her loves lie. That's what she would call her love language, right? So I don't think she's got a PhD in math. And yet, she has a mind, and she has the ability to observe. And she observed a problem with the way AI and memory works and all that kind of stuff. And she posited a solution, and she used AI as a tool, and she basically leveraged the whole of human engineering, or at least the parts that would make sense to use. And she didn't even have to know which parts to leverage. She's just asking AI a question, and AI is the box that contains the whole of what we've done up until this point. And now even she, without proper training, can come up with something. Doesn't mean that we need to stop learning math. No, I think it's really good, for people to actually learn how to add and subtract and divide and factor numbers and do some algebra and even calculus and stuff like that. But that's sort of, at one point or another, after learning all that, if you wanted to say, I've been programming in C++ for 10 years. I've never touched Rust. Are you really going to not leverage something like AI when you know the logic behind programming? You're not going to leverage AI to write in a different programming style or a different programming language? Or are you really going to pick up a Rust book and learn the syntax and all the stuff that you need to learn to be able to translate what you already know? What all it does is break down friction barriers. And the fact that this box of human engineering has a mouth and a set of ears, and even if you want to go so far, a set of eyes, because I give AI screen grabs and say, OCR everything on this screen grab and put it into a paragraph for me. Okay, now rewrite it. So it even has eyes. Right? So where we came from, the whole of human engineering has now been stuffed into a box. I can have a discussion with that box. Now I've crossed the bridge. And I'm never going back across that bridge. I don't want to blow up the bridge, but I'm never going back across that bridge. And this is the discussion that I had with my son. It's now more about language. How do you articulate your ideas? How do you pull what's in your head out into writing and speaking? Because before, those ideas, you wouldn't pull them out if you didn't know how to translate it into, avionics or aeronautics or rocket science or whatever it is that you're going to do. You have an idea, but you don't know the first thing about propulsion mechanisms at NASA. Yet somehow or another, you keep looking at rockets and you're like, there's something about the shape of the engine bell that just doesn't make sense to me. But now a 10-year-old can have a discussion with the whole of humanity's engineering history. And maybe he's right. Maybe the 10-year-old's right. Maybe the shape of the engine bell is a little off. Maybe it could have a little bit of a different curve that makes more sense. Who knows? But that's where we're at, and we're never going back, and trillions of AI agents are going to be crawling all over the web. Even the internet is now a brave new world. Be ready for it. I'm telling you, man. Let's end with Bhutan being stupid again. Bhutan moves another $18 million in Bitcoin as tracked holdings continue to shrink. So they're selling out of their position. This is from The Block, and it is written by Naga Avan Nomeo. The royal government of Bhutan has moved another 250 Bitcoin to a newly created wallet, extending a run of outflows from state-linked addresses this year and following a similar transfer reported earlier this week. Data tracked by Arkham shows Bhutan has now moved roughly $233 million worth of Bitcoin out of its known holding addresses in this quarter alone. Well, okay, these were at the beginning of the second quarter, but just this year, right? Well, four months and, 3 months and 10 days. Okay. The country's remaining holdings have fallen to around 3,770 BTC. At its peak, Bhutan held close to 13,000 Bitcoin, which puts the scale of the drawdown at over 70%. It's really too bad to see this country do this, but it kind of makes me wonder, the way that they have been getting this Bitcoin is they've been mining it. This kind of puts them into a different position, doesn't it? They're not selling at a loss, essentially. We don't know as much about Bhutan's mining infrastructure as we would like, but I can almost bet you that they weren't mining Bitcoin for $80,000 a coin. And I saw that number yesterday on this fucking TradingView. You got that little, if you use TradingView, you set up these little news alerts in the bottom right-hand corner or something like that. That's where I've got mine. And this one comes up and it says, miners losing money because it costs $80,000 to mine a Bitcoin. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're smoking, but it might cost that in some places, but dude, it's just another FUD point. We're mining death spiral. Quantum's going to kill us. AI is going to take over. We live in a state of fear and it needs to stop. So it's springtime in most places in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're too far north, you may still be too damn cold to go outside. If it's not too damn cold to go outside, then go the fuck outside. Go without your shoes. I don't know, go to a park, take off your shoes and socks and run around the grass with your kids if you got them. And if you don't got kids, then I don't know, unleash your inner child and run around like a banshee, screaming your head off and feel the grass underneath your feet. There's more to life than AI and quantum attacks on Bitcoin and Bitcoin itself and money and this continuous chasing after the almighty dollar or yuan or whatever fiat that they're waving in front of us to distract us from the fact that, is that why we're really here? Is that why we're really on Earth? I'm not saying sell all your shit and, live in a sackcloth. I'm just saying, isn't it worth maybe every week to just think for 15 minutes about the question, what is wealth? But more importantly, what is wealth to you? Because wealth to me is going to be different than you. One thing that I'm very, certain about with most hardcore Bitcoiners is that before Bitcoin, our view of wealth was probably very, very siloed. It was very, very instructionalized to us what wealth is, and it was done that way through media and government policy and what we learned at public school or even what we learned at private school, whatever. And our parents taught us the same shit too, because they were living in the same silo of ideas about what wealth is. But I almost guarantee you that there's probably not a hardcore Bitcoiner out there that hasn't wondered, have I been lied to about what wealth actually is? It's something to think about, something to ponder as we go into this weekend. It's going to be a beautiful day in most places. Go outside, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.